Rediscovering the joy of teaching. I'm extremely happy that I got one more chance to meet you all via this online. This is a very exciting topic, so to say, rediscovering the joy of teaching. Therefore, at the outset, let me inform you that I'm going to wind up around 11 o'clock because I have some other academic engagement. So from 10 to 10:45 or 10:50, we go on, and then we will have some 10 minutes for question and answer session. At 11, I'm going to stop. Kindly bear with me because of my prior engagement. Hello? So from 10 to 10:50, roughly, I deliver the lecture, and then we have 10 minutes at our disposal for question and answer session. Now, right away, let me take a plunge into my topic, namely rediscovering the joy of teaching. The teacher has a very peculiar job, as you know. It is easy in some ways, and in others it is difficult. The easiest part about teaching is that it is the spacious routine. What is interesting about the teaching job is it has the spacious routine. The spacious routine means you have long space compared to a businessman or a professional person, because a businessman or a professional person is always on duty for 48 or 50 weeks every year, year after year. Business people work for 48 to 50 weeks, so also professionals. But the teacher enjoys a lot of leisure. That is the understanding. Leisure is one of the three greatest rewards of being a teacher. So it is unfortunately the privilege which teachers most often or often misuse. So we have plenty of leisure, but sometimes we misuse this advantage. The teacher's chief difficulty is poverty, they used to say earlier, but now with new pay scales and all that, we can't anymore describe the teacher's job as a poor man's job. We are very handsomely paid, especially the UGC scale people. So anyway, in some countries where wealth is greatly admired as a symbol of success, this is a heavy sacrifice to make. They will have to work with less salary in some institutions. It is partly compensated by the rewards of prestige and respect. Irrespective of the salary that we get, in the society, we are always respected. And teaching profession is a very prestigious profession. Earlier, we used to describe a teacher's job is the noble profession. Teacher's profession is the noble profession, we used to say. The same thing continues. Irrespective of the passage of time, a teacher's job is highly respected in our society, in any other society for that matter. Though, what is the second reward of a teacher? The second reward of a teacher is that he is using his mind on valuable subjects that we shall not forget. We as teachers, we use our minds on valuable subjects. All over the world, people are spending their lives on doing jobs where the mind must be kept numb all day. Unfortunately, suppose you take the job of a lift operator. So from morning till evening, or 8 hours or so, for one whole shift, he's taking people up and down, up and down, up and down. That is the job of a lift operator. The job of, for example, a mason, a building mason, with not very creative but highly mechanical, that kind of a thing. Like the structure of the human body or the history of the human body. We come across the third reward of teaching, which is the happiness of making something. So that happiness cannot be taken away by anyone. All of us, teachers, will always be molding the minds Okay, you take the living mind and we mold it. Okay, all our students, 60, 70, 80, or 100, as the case may be, we are going to mold their minds. That is one great satisfaction. That is what we call the third reward of a teacher. To teach a boy thinking about poetry or patriotism, and then expecting him to give his feedback in a constructive way. If he gives his feedback in a constructive way, nothing like that is a wonderful thing. It is almost like an artist painting on a blank canvas with the help of his paints, giving us a wonderful picture. Similarly, we teachers mold the minds of the students, the younger generation. When a doctor hears a sick pulse pick up and carry the energies of a new life under his hands, he feels terribly happy about it. It's like almost giving birth to a person. You see, the pulse is almost gone, but the doctor injects something, and the sick person regains his consciousness and comes to life. Similarly, a teacher, has those teachers who have never experienced this kind of molding the living minds are really the losers. We should all feel that we are molding the minds. They say boys and girls hate them, and often they hate the boys and girls. This is a very strange thing. Some teachers complain that somehow boys and girls hate me, and boys and girls also certainly hate some teachers. Over a period of years, their hatred becomes known and builds up a barrier which they can never break down. So, this kind of barrier should not exist between the teachers and the students. There is absolutely no reason why we should hate the children, and the children also have no reason to hate us as adults and teachers. I'll come to that later. Now, we have to think about the qualities of a good teacher. First and foremost, necessary of all, he must know this subject. That goes without saying. A teacher must know this subject he is teaching. He must know what he teaches. This sounds obvious, yet it is not always practiced. If his job is to teach chemistry, for instance, he must really understand the science of chemistry. And he must know what are the new discoveries made every year in chemistry. If a boy shows a gift for chemistry, the master must be able to encourage him by throwing window after window into the future. Besides, he must show him what he can learn at the university, which big problems still remain to be solved, and how the great chemists of the past and present have worked and lived. So, teaching is, we must understand this very carefully. Teaching is inseparable from learning. Unfortunately, whatever that we have learned in our postgraduate classes, most of us stop adding and enhancing our knowledge and try to enhance our consciousness. That should not be the case. Whatever that we have learned as students in our postgraduate degree, etc., that is only the starting point. And the vast life stretches in front of us. I must go on enhancing, acquiring new dimensions, adding new dimensions to our existing knowledge. Every good teacher will learn more about his subject every year, every month, every week, if possible. Okay, that is how the responsibility is there on our shoulders. We must learn every year, every month, if possible, every week. If a girl chooses the career of teaching French in school, let us say, she should study her prescribed textbooks diligently, but she should dedicate part of her life to the French language. So that is only one example that I'm taking, but it applies to all other subjects as well. If you are a French teacher, you must French. You must
eating
we have to bear in mind that the human mind is infinitely capacious. I want to stress this point very, very greatly, in the sense the human mind is infinitely capacious. There is no limit for the human mind to absorb new things, new area of knowledge, so on and so forth. It is our short-sightedness which always tells us that thus far and no further. No, I can't study this. It is too much for me, etc., etc. We only draw the line mentally. That should not be the case, for the simple reason that the human mind is infinitely capacious. There is no limit for the capacity of the human mind. We cannot guess how much knowledge a child will want, and if it is presented to him in the right way, will digest. Young people hate grown-ups for many reasons. One of the reasons is that they feel grown-ups' minds are fixed and limited. So there may be an element of truth in that. The young people start rejecting the ideas of the older people because they think that the grown-ups' minds are fixed and limited. And the young people always admire a man or a woman, a teacher, for example, who is alive, sensitive, energetic, and zestful, as they themselves are. Young people normally are alive, sensitive, energetic, and zestful. Therefore, naturally, they expect the teachers to be alive, energetic, and just zestful, and also sensitive. This word zestful is very, very important. Look up the dictionary and try to understand the various dimensions, the meanings of that word. We have to fully involved in life with a lot of vigor and enthusiasm. That is the meaning of the word zestfulness. So it is true that we cannot all be fountains of energy throughout the day. For example, the first class that you start early in the morning or in the morning, let us say, will be very good, and the students also respond, and your class is received very well. By the time you come to the last class between 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, whatever the case may be, the same new enthusiasm to our business of teaching. Now, I think of an example normally, and that is this is a story connected with a great Italian conductor, music conductor called Toscanini. That's the name of the great Italian conductor of music. And the case pertains to his first violinist. As Toscanini proceeded, the violinist made awful grimaces as if he were in great pain. This first violinist, started making grimaces, the contortion of the face, and Toscanini observed something is wrong with this violinist. Therefore, he approaches him and and asks him, "Are you ill? Are you indisposed? Are you uncomfortable? What is the matter that you are showing that pain or whatever on your face?" Then the violinist answers, "To be frank, I hate music." This is the answer Toscanini gets from his first violinist. The concert is on, everybody is playing music, and this particular man, when asked, says, "To be frank, I hate music." What does this anecdote tell us? It is terribly important for a teacher to love his job. If a violinist hates music, then he has no business to be there in the orchestra. He should have quit the job long back, and he should have, searched for a new job altogether. This is the lesson that all of us as teachers must draw. We must love our job because he has to awaken young minds to a valuable subject. Whatever the subject that we are teaching, I think the younger generation people must evince keen interest in absorbing the knowledge that we transmit. That is the first requirement on the part of a teacher. The teacher has to communicate to his pupils every gesture and by every intonation of his voice that he thinks that his subject is worthwhile. For example, if you are teaching botany or geology or even zoology, whatever the subject may be, I think the students must get the impression that this teacher is a real botanist, is a real zoologist, is a real geologist, real poetry man. If you are teaching poetry to the children, the students must automatically get the impression that you have spent all your life in understanding the great tradition of poetry, right from the beginning till the present times, what all the various poetic movements have taken place, and who are the great poets from century to century, and what are the poetic traditions that have shaped the fate of a language. All these things my teacher is aware of. That should be the impression your student should get, whatever be the subject. That means a good teacher must know the subject and he must continue to learn it. As I said, the teacher, can never stop learning. The second essential is that he must like the subject. If a history teacher does not like the saga of Middle Ages, how does it look? If a French teacher never opens a French book at home, what kind of a French teacher she or he would be? So, how astonished he would be if your doctor told you that he never read the medical journals. Suppose you approach a doctor and if he tells you, I don't read medical journals, that should really shock you. From tomorrow onwards, you should not approach such a doctor, because if he is not in constant touch with the medical journals, how will he come to know new researches that are taking place and new medicines that are coming to the market and new knowledge obtained in his subject? Therefore, such a doctor is a very dangerous doctor. Certainly, you would avoid him or her, because they are not acquiring new knowledge and they're not coming to terms with new research, and therefore they will not be aware of new medicine in the market. So similarly, young dislike their elders for having fixed minds, but they dislike even more for being insincere. Some people make the mistake of not concentrating on a particular area of interest. They become jack of all trades and master of none. When they reach the age of 40 and look around to discover that they have no really solid interest, no large book in the making, and so only a vaguely defined reputation. Now, all of you are teachers reaching perhaps 35 to 40 age range. It is a wonderful time for all of you to discover what is my real interest. Is there a real interest? Should I pursue some course? Should I start writing a book which is going to last for longer duration of time? Have I chosen a particular area, etc., etc.? These are some of the questions you need to put at this stage in your teaching career. So, if you don't choose your field, after the lapse of some 5, 10 years or 20 years, when you look back, you certainly are going to regret, because your career promised something. Maybe you were a rank student when you did your post-graduation. Maybe you gave a lot of promise to your parents and your colleagues and your institution, but probably you did not live up to the expectations. So you always show the promise to the external world that you are an extraordinary individual, shaping up very well. Finally, you did not shape up well, and you just squandered a great opportunity. So that very many people, it has happened to very many people. How often you heard it said that X might have written a fine book, but that he had put it off until it was too late. It's not enough to choose your subject. A wise teacher will choose particular areas of his subjects which he believes will be both interesting and illuminating. He will find that his increasing knowledge of them will give him a sense of mastery, will keep him from feeling he is merely plying a trade, and will somehow carry over to his people. The third essential of good teaching is to like the pupils. I started off saying there should be mutual respect between the teacher and the taught. And again, it boils down to the fact that you must start to like the students. If you do not actually like boys and girls or young men and young women, give up teaching, says one of the educationists. A well-meaning educationist says that if you do not actually like boys and girls or young men and young women, give up teaching. What are the hateful faults we grown-up men and women have? They are, hateful faults. We certainly have some faults, ingrained faults. They are conceit, vulgar self-satisfaction, puffy laziness of mind and body. In fact, this educationist is a bit harsh, very maybe bordering on crudity. He says, well, we suffer from terrible fault of conceit. You know the meaning of the word conceit, CONCEIT, conceit. And then another harsh expression he uses is most of us suffer from vulgar self satisfaction. And the third danger is puffy laziness of mind and body. We have to exercise our mind and body quite regularly in order to keep our zestfulness at its intensest. Zestfulness, aliveness, active mind, it is very, very important. So that self-satisfaction is the most dangerous thing. What do you mean by self-satisfaction? Whatever that we have studied for our, MA or MSc or whatever, we feel that is enough to take care of our PU students. Pre-university students are not highly demanding. They are not mentally very agile and alive. Whatever that I have studied so far is enough for me to engage a class for 60 minutes. That is the mental framework with which we enter into a class. And even in degree classes, you always get the feeling that there is no need for me to make extra effort to teach these boys and girls. That is the kind of framework we have now, most of us have normally. This is vulgar self satisfaction. We have to avoid it at all costs. We can never be self satisfied. Therefore, whether the audience is young, too young, and are not highly talented or matured, that is a separate question. That is not our business. We must always approach the classes with the full knowledge that there are intelligent boys and girls in the class and they can take everything that I can give. Therefore, all your training, all your research, all your acute understanding of your subject will always be employed to put across the ideas. There are students, we can take the best from you, and therefore we shall never entertain the idea that this much is enough and there is no need for me to work further. So we have to avoid this self-satisfaction and then puffy laziness of mind and body. We should never allow our mind to, become passive, and body also equally important. Therefore, this exercise, physical exercise, is as important as the mental exercise, because ultimately physical exercise promises so many things and keeps us engaged and alert and agile also. So therefore, that is one thing that I wanted to emphasize. So, there is always rewards. You must always feel that what the orator feels when he addresses an audience, partly friendly, partly docile, and sings. I come to the next important point, a group of which is the heart and soul of voice, the good teacher. I wanted this point to you to remember. The good teacher feels that same flow of energy constantly supplied by the young. We derive energy from the young audiences. We shall not forget the fact that it is our students that give us energy, that lend us energy. The good teacher feels that same flow of energy constantly supplied by the young. If the teacher can canalize it. He will never be tired, at least not while he is teaching. So I have met school teachers who are literally terrified of their pupils and sighed with relief when the bell rang and they were released from intimidation for another day. I've actually seen with my own eyes the teachers waiting for the bell to ring, that 60 minutes or 45 minutes class is over. Thank God, I can, till tomorrow, I can feel happy and no botheration from the students. They heave a sigh of relief. There is another necessary qualification he or she should know much else. This is also an important point. The teacher, a lady teacher or a gents teacher must know much else. What do you mean by that? The good teacher is a man or woman of exceptionally wide and lively intellectual interests. Exceptionally wide and lively intellectual interest. What do you mean by exceptionally wide and lively intellectual interest? For example, if you are a teacher of chemistry, you will not be satisfied only with chemistry. That will not make you a great teacher. Believe me. In addition to your subject, I'm only taking up chemistry as one example. Whatever the subject that you are dealing with, physics, mathematics, geography, geology, psychology, whatever the sociology, whatever the subject may be, apart from your subject, I think we are expected to know, widely music in interest in music, interest in sports, interest in politics, interest in dance, for example, fine arts in general. All these things will give us an extra dimension to our personality. So, in addition to our subject that we actually teach, I think we should develop exceptionally wide and lively intellectual interest. This is what we call intellectual interest. So, teachers in schools and universities must see more, think more, understand more than the average man and woman of the society in which they live. This is the expectation of the educationists. Teachers in schools and universities must see more, think more, and understand more. I don't want to explain in greater detail what I mean by see more, think more, and understand more than the average man or woman of our society. That is what is expected of us. Okay? So it means that they must know more about the world, have wider interests, keep a more active enthusiasm for the problems of the mind and the inexhaustible pleasures of art. Just now, I employed the expression that the good teacher is a man or woman of exceptionally wide and lively intellectual interests. More or less, I am saying the same thing when I say that the teachers, we the teacher, I'm including myself, we the teachers must know more about the world. We must have wider interests and keep a more active enthusiasm for the problems of the mind and the inexhaustible pleasures of art. Art is a vast world. It includes music, dance, painting, drama, literature, poetry, so on and so forth. It's a vast world. Therefore, all of us teachers, I don't want to repeat that the moment I say teachers, it includes teachers of mathematics, teachers of physics, teachers of chemistry, teachers of sociology and political science, so on and so forth. All of us have this responsibility of knowing the inexhaustible pleasures of art. Invariably, we must develop some interest to know about of arts and fine arts, and spend the whole of their career widening the horizon of our spirit. To widen the horizon of our spirit is absolutely important. We shall not get limited to only certain area of interest. Our interests are wide, inexhaustible pleasures of art, I said. Please note that inexhaustible pleasures of art. Most people, as we see, stop growing between 30 and 40. They settle down. That is the reason why they do not grow after attaining the age of 40, let us say. They settle down, a phrase which implies stagnation. Settling down means what? We become stagnate, suffer from stagnation. Stagnation is not growing, not growing at all. No teacher should dream of doing this. We should never reach stagnation. We should always grow from point A to point B. From, as I said, we have to enhance, add from year to year, from month to month, to week, new readings, etc. A teacher's job is understanding a large and important area of world's activity and achievement and making it viable for the young. Because our responsibility is to put across new ideas to the younger generation, we ourselves must acquire vast knowledge. We must see more, think more, and understand more. The teacher should expect to understand more and more of it as years go by. He has two special functions that make him different from other professional men. Two more special functions a teacher has. The first function of this is to make a bridge between the university and the world. If you understand what I mean by the university and the world, a teacher ought to act as a bridge between the academia and the world. If the young think that they are shut up in classrooms and taught such skills as trigonometry, while the real world hums and clatters and shouts beyond the windows, that is the tragedy. Let us say you are teaching trigonometry or algebra or geometry, whatever in the classroom. If your students think that outside the classroom, children are very happy, they are just shouting, they are clattering, and then there is, all kinds of freedom. But I am confined within the four walls, and this teacher is teaching me trigonometry. I don't know whether this trigonometry is going to help me in future, or does it have any meaning to my life at all? If your students wonder whether this trigonometry is of any use when my class fellows, boys and girls, are playing in the playground, enjoying themselves with wonderful games, etc., etc. That is the tragedy. Because hello, because even as you teach such recondite subjects, such difficult subjects, the students must understand that this subject is important. The teacher is struggling to put across the ideas, and this trigonometry or whatever, algebra, whatever, is certainly important, and therefore the teacher is explaining it with a lot of enthusiasm and meaning. That is the idea the student should get. So we must make our subjects relevant. When you are teaching a poem which deals with nature, let us say, the students must automatically connect that poem of nature with what is happening today in the world. Because we talk of climate change, let us say. Climate change is such a reality. It is not something, a myth or something, a fictitious element. It is real. Climate change is real. And we see forest burning. We see the floods. We see drought. Everything is real because of climate change. Therefore, when a poet is explaining the beauty of nature or emphasizing the value of preserving that nature, directly we can connect with what is happening around the world today. Therefore, the children will pulsate. They will respond to what we are teaching. Therefore, our subject of teaching will not become alien, will not become something which does not have any connection with real life. It has connection with real life. Whatever the subject that we are teaching, we can make that subject very, very relevant. That is the first thing. The best way to do is for the teacher to make himself relevant. Therefore, many times people have learned a difficult subject well because they felt the teacher's vitality and energy. So even when the subject is difficult, because of the teacher's vitality and energy, the students understand the value of this subject. The student must feel that the teacher is filled with lively interest in the contemporary world. We shall not separate ourselves from the contemporary world. Whatever the subject that we are teaching, we must make it relevant, connect it to the present contemporary world, and automatically the subject becomes relevant. So the practice of the intellectual life must make the teacher wise and competent instead of making him vague and remote. We may teach a particular subject and then there is no connection with the present day world. The student should not get that impression because the teacher is always wise and is competent. He has the ability to make a connection between the subject and the contemporary world. Therefore, the good teacher is an interesting man or woman. Most teaching is done by talking. If your mind is full of lively awareness of the world, I am repeating this phrase again and again because all of us, teachers, must develop a lively awareness of the world, without which we cannot transmit our subject meaningfully to our students. So you will never be at a loss for new points of view on your own subject if you have lively interest of the world. The second function of the teacher is to make a bridge between youth and maturity. Every year we become old, we, the teachers, become old, but we face the young audience. The audience becomes younger and younger every year. We become older and older, as we have experienced perhaps. Therefore, we have to act as a bridge between the youth and maturity. We represent maturity, the students represent youth. Therefore, we have to act as a bridge between these two entities. So the teacher has to interpret adult life to the young in such a way as to make them adult. To do this, he should belong to both worlds. We as teachers belong to both worlds, means we belong to the world of the youth and also to the world of the matured adults, and that is our responsibility. So although this bridge building is difficult between the two worlds, maybe it is possible, it is necessary, it is by the best teachers. The teachers, the best teachers, make this bridge, building the bridge possible. It is possible and it is also necessary. Without this bridge, I think we cannot transact the business. The young people must learn to work hard. By our teaching, we must make the young people work hard because it is they who are going to work throughout their lives. It's not as if they can work for 1 year or 5 years and stop. They will have to work for 30 years, 40 years at a stretch in order to make their lives meaningful. Therefore, we as teachers must send the signal in the classroom situation by our own behavior, by our own preoccupations, by our own hard work, that working hard is important. To teach them that work is unnecessary or avoidable is to deform their characters. We shall not give them the signal that somehow you can pass, whether you write 1 page or half a page. I'm going to give you 10 marks or maximum marks like all others. That signal we should not send. We should always send the signal that only those who work hard will be duly rewarded. Without hard work, no reward will be yours. the signal we must send. So to teach that work is unnecessary or avoidable is actually deforming their character. So now do the young like authority. They are natural anarchists. They would prefer a world of unpredictable disorder. Now, I want to pause for a minute and explain to you that how the changed scenario. Now, the fast changing world, young people particularly, do not like authority. They like anarchy. They are basically anarchists. It is our responsibility to make them understand that they will have to abide by certain rules and regulations without which life will not be smooth. So they would prefer a world of unpredictable disorder without duties or responsibilities. They don't want any duties and responsibilities. They do not take seriously of their homework, but still they want good marks as equivalent to the students who are working hard. Such a thing cannot happen. The young must be taught to respect the principle of authority. Concentration must be learned. Concentration is also an intellectual process. Now, concentration is the big thing because of the development of science and technology and fast-moving world. We have lost the attention span. Our attention span is limited to 20 minutes, they used to say earlier on, but now I think it must have reduced to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Our attention span is woefully short. We must enhance the attention span, and then students must learn concentration, because concentration is also an intellectual process. Then memory and willpower are two qualities that make a good teacher. The third is kindness. It is very difficult to teach anything without kindness. If you are not kind, you will not teach your children properly, the students. Finally, the people should feel that the teacher wants to help them, wants them to improve, is interested in their growth. That is the impression they should get. The teacher, after all, wants our good, wants us to improve, and he is interested in our growth. That is the impression. And he is sorry for the mistakes we have committed, and he is actually pleased by our successes. I think the kind of sympathy that you are capable of, and you can take care of the inadequacies of the students by being very, very sympathetic. So at no stage, the students should get an impression that somehow the teacher is unkind and almost on the verge of hating us. We should erase that impression right from the beginning. Therefore, this kindness must be genuine kindness. Pupils of all ages, from careless children up to hardworking graduate students, easily and quickly detect the teacher who dislikes them. Every teacher dislikes some pupils, let us say. But if any teacher finds himself disliking all his pupils, he should change his character, and if that fails, change his job, says one of the educationists. Now, since I have just 5 or 6 minutes at my disposal, I will come to the last item on the agenda as far as I am concerned this morning, namely teachers and their communicative skills. However much you emphasize this fact, it is not enough. This art of communication, as far as a teacher is concerned, is of utmost importance, because a teacher ought to be a good communicator. Even if he is a mediocre scholar, he can be an excellent teacher. All of us are not endowed with wonderful scholarship. Some people are, inherently scholastic in their approach. Scholarship they earn somehow by reading books, by doing research, by transacting with the great minds, etc., etc. It comes naturally to some, but most of us, we are not cut out for being scholars. Even if we are not scholars, if we are good communicators, I think we can become excellent teachers. Communication, the transmission of thought from one mind to others, is one of the basic activities of the human race. We shall not forget this. Communication is the transmission of thought from one mind to others, is one of the basic activities of the human race. Without the art of communication, a genius is dumb, power brutal and aimless, mankind a planet load of squabbling tribes. Without proper communication, mankind is a planet load of squabbling tribes. I think you would agree with me. Looking at our, legislators in the assembly, state assemblies, and members of parliament in parliament, looking at them, how they quarrel, how they squabble, we come to the conclusion that without proper communication, our mankind, the entire mankind, becomes a planet load of squabbling tribes. That has been proved beyond doubt. Therefore, when we are teaching the young minds, I think indirectly or indirectly, we must communicate to them that, we are a tribe of decent, civilized human society. Therefore, communication should be of a high order. Communication is an essential function of civilization, so to say. So, teaching depends upon it absolutely. For lecturing, the single most important quality is delivery. Okay, delivery depends on the voice and on gestures. Of these, the voice is far more important. Obviously, it must be clear. Although many teachers do not make the mistake of speaking inaudibly, some talk too fast to follow, while others chew their words or gobble them or hiss and splutter them. These are various shortcomings, lacunae that we find in teaching. So normally the students take revenge by mocking the noises made by the teacher. So if you have a regional accent or a curiously pitched voice or difficulty with any particular letter, watch your pupil's eyes. If you are nervous or have a large class, don't hesitate to ask them to cooperate by telling if you become inaudible, etc., etc. So when they finally, it is wise to remember also that as you get older, your voice often gets weaker, or else the energy which you put into it tends to diminish without you are noticing it. Now, you are young people in your late 30s and early 40s, perhaps you will not find your energy sagging. You can manage the class of 60 minutes without feeling any weakness. But as you grow older, you will automatically realize that your voice is not that supreme any longer. Therefore, you will have to adjust. Speaking in public to any audience, large or small, always demands physical effort. A young teacher, if he is not inhibited by shyness or vanity, will usually make the effort, etc. It is really exhausting to listen to a speaker who shouts at you all the time. It diminishes attention. Now, as teachers, we boast of one fact that for 60 minutes, I can engage my class without any preparation. I have heard some teachers telling me that I don't need any preparation, sir. I can walk into the class and then engage the class for 60 minutes or 1 hour. That is the thing they say. Is it really possible to engage a class for 60 minutes without any prior preparation, without brushing up the notes or whatever that you have done in the past? It is very exhausting to listen to a speaker who shouts at you all the time. It diminishes attention. The inaudible teacher is as useless as the statesman without a policy or the workman who breaks his tools. The inaudible teacher is a problem. Similarly, a teacher who shouts at the top of his voice for 1 whole hour, that means for 60 minutes, it is not possible to tolerate both of them. Both the teacher who shouts and both the teacher who speaks inaudibly. So it is not only the loudness of your voice that matters. When you speak to a class, you must watch your speed. Speed is important. If you talk too quickly, they cannot follow your argument. If you talk too slowly, they will fall asleep. Misplaced and multiplied pauses are a sure sign of a bad speaker. Sometimes the speaker considers his audience to be half-wits, therefore he or she talks very slowly, so slowly that the audience will fall asleep. It is more difficult to understand a speech when it is broken up into tiny fragments, as it is more difficult to read a page by intermittent light. When there is no sufficient light, you cannot read a page, printed page. Similarly, when a person, breaks his speech very, very intermittently, that also becomes bad communication. So one fault, still worse than making irrational pauses, is punctuating every sentence with some kind of noise. Of course, every speaker must pause to let his words sink in and to let the echoes of his voice subside. But when you pause, you should pause only after you have uttered a fragment of thought. I am giving a pause right now to demonstrate to you. I am giving a pause. ನಿಂತು ನಿಂತು ನಿಲುಗಡೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾತಾಡುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನ, ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಮ. ನಿಲುಗಡೆ, ಆ ನಿಲುಗಡೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ವಿಧಾನ ಇರಬೇಕು ಮತ್ತು ಅದು ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಬೇಕು. When you pause, you should pause only after you have uttered a fragment of thought big enough to be understood and examined by itself. It is silly to stop after every 3 or 4 words. Pause as you punctuate in writing. If you are a real good speaker with a firm grasp of the logical structure of your subject, an experienced reporter could take down your whole speech, divide it up into sentences, paragraphs, and sections, and subhead it without help from you because he understood it as you spoke. If somebody is taking down notes, even as you speak, he should be able to take down everything without any problem. It is also useless to speak slowly in order to let the pupils write your words. On the whole, this habit is responsible for more bad lecturing than any other fault. Because of paucity of time, I'm not able to explain this in greater detail. Only thing is that you must, as you gain experience as teachers, try to employ these pauses very wisely. And, just like punctuation in writing, pauses must come meaningfully in between. What separates a good lecturer from a bad one is their ability to use the contrast in tone. That means your voice should change within a lecture at least as much as it does in private life. That variation. You must avoid the monotone or monotonous rendering of speech while you lecture. No one would find it interesting to talk to a man who never raised or lowered his voice, never changed the speed of his words, and showed no change of feeling in his eyes and expression. The audience will always like a person who changes his tone, varies his expression, and so on and so forth. Therefore, no one finds it interesting to listen to a lecture delivered to listen with the same monotony. Expressiveness in speech is natural. No, the word expressiveness itself is expressive. Therefore, expressiveness in speech is natural. Repression and dullness in speech are artificial. Therefore, each teacher must discover the joy of teaching. No ready-made scheme is there. for you. Therefore, to end my talk, because I promised you at the start that there is going to be some 10 minutes interaction session, question and answer session, and I will end by this reference. Therefore, kindly discover the art of communication, the art of teaching by taking into account all these factors that I was able to refer during the course of this 50 minutes lecture, how to win the attention of the students and how to gain mastery over our subject and how to put across the ideas that each and everything that the teacher is delivering is relevant, and teachers' awareness of the contemporary world and the inexhaustible possibilities of art. I don't really want to emphasize it over and over again that our exposure to the world of fine arts is very important for teachers. When I say teachers, I include all of us. We are a fraternity, belong to one particular community of teachers. There we don't bifurcate as chemistry, physics, art, science, humanities, so on and so forth. All of us have equal responsibility to put across our ideas to the younger generation because they have to carry the baton, they have to keep the flag flying, so to say. This is how knowledge enhances, knowledge grows and flourishes for the benefit of humanity. Now, I think I will stop there. Look forward to your question and answer.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
This is Naveen Kumar from. I'm working as an assistant professor in Hanagodu College, Mysore, Follow.
Your subject, sir?
Political science, sir.
Wonderful, great. That is the need of the hour. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I want to know your opinion. So, given that 60 minutes in a class, so how do you divide 60 minutes in a class? I can understand that there won't be any model for that.
Right.
But from your experience, say suppose if I want to ask students few questions, I want to give some lecture.
Right.
And then if I want to dictate some notes, I do not have any intention to dictate some notes, but the point of dictating a notes is to make them right, because like it get used to the practice of writing.
True.
Given in 60 minutes,
Yeah.
like how can I divide like 60 minutes into some minutes for note making?
I got your point. I got your point, Dr. Naveen Kumar, because even before entering into the class, I'm sure you will have some outline of the class, the kind of things that you want to deliver within the period of 60 minutes. You will have certainly structured your lecture. That's what I'm trying to drive at. Without having a structure in mind about the lecture of the day, I think the success rate will be very, very less. If you have a structure, certainly at the end of the day, you will have gained a lot of confidence and then a lot of fulfillment of having transmitted certain ideas during that particular hour. Therefore, what I mean by structure is that the beginning of the lecture, how you develop it, and how you want to close it, what are the elements that go into that class, so on and so forth. But certainly you would reserve the last 10 or 15 minutes for the question and answer session. Now, in the undergraduate level, we have this apprehension that the students are not matured enough to participate in question and answer session very meaningfully. I understand that apprehension, but gradually, I think somewhere we have to make a beginning, and then right at the start of your semester or whatever, if you give the students an impression that invariably there is going to be a question and answer session at the end of the class, they will be mentally prepared. And then even as they listen to your lecture, encourage them to make notes and then try to elicit some questions. Once you give them an impression that you like that part of the transaction, question and answer session, they will be gradually prepared to participate very meaningfully in that Q&A session. Therefore, as you are all experienced teachers, as you said, there are no definite rules, but all the successful teachers have evolved their own methodology, and this methodology must invariably contain, according to my limited experience, that there is a structure, however implied it is. It may not be very obvious, but certainly there is an implied method, implied structure, which automatically deals with the beginning, the gradual development of the lecture, and finally, how do you wind up the lecture depends on your wisdom and your experience. So this is how perhaps I would divide my 60 minutes into different 3 or 4 segments and come out with some kind of satisfaction.